Donald Trump's administration who has left 0045. It was a catchphrase from his days as host of The Apprentice and, now in the White House, Donald Trump has shown he's still happy to tell someone you're fired. Since the former celebrity businessman entered the Oval Office, the list of departures from his administration has been rising rapidly. Some have been dismissed, some have resigned. Here's a partial list of officials who have been sacked or have left the administration since Mr. Trump took office on January 20. James Comey, the Federal Bureau of Information Director, had been leading an investigation into the Trump 2016 presidential campaign's possible collusion with Russia to influence the election outcome when he was fired by Mr. Trump in May. Arguably the most controversial dismissal, Mr. Comey's firing sent shockwaves through Washington. The White House narrative about how and why Mr. Trump dismissed the FBI director changed frequently in the days following the dismissal. However, Mr. Trump admitted in an NBC interview, "When I decided to just do it, I said to myself, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost an election that they should have won," he said. A timeline of James Comey's fall from grace. 0344. The acting U.S. Attorney General was fired by Mr. Trump in January after she ordered Justice Department lawyers not to enforce Mr. Trump's controversial immigration ban. The president accused Ms. Yates of having betrayed the Department of Justice by refusing to enforce a legal order designed to protect the citizens of the United States. Trump fires Attorney General over travel ban. Betrayal. 0128. Ms. Yates, who was appointed by Barack Obama, said in an open letter that she is not convinced that the executive order is lawful. Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Republican-held U.S. Senate, called Mr. Trump's decision chilling. Michael Flynn, Mr. Trump's national security advisor, resigned in February after disclosures that he had discussed U.S. sanctions on Russia with the Russian ambassador to the United States before Mr. Trump took office and misled Vice President Mike Pence about the conversations. Ms. Yates later said Mr. Flynn had left himself compromised by having a conversation with the Russian ambassador, and then lying to the vice president about it. Profile General Michael Flynn. She said that the Russians knew the conversation with Sergei Kislyak had taken place, but the White House did not, meaning that Mr. Flynn could be essentially blackmailed by the Russians. Preet Bharara, the former leading prosecutor, claims he was sacked by Donald Trump in March after refusing an order from the Attorney General to resign. Mr. Bharara, a 48-year-old U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, made a name for himself taking on Wall Street corruption, terrorism and political malfeasance. Preet Bharara credit AFP Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, issued an order that all 46 Obama-appointed prosecutors resign immediately. Mr. Bharara refused to resign and so was subsequently fired. Months later, he claimed Mr. Trump had tried to contact him on 3 occasions. He said he refused to take the calls as he was uncomfortable about fostering close contact between the White House and independent criminal investigators. Walter Shaub, the head of the U.S. Office of Government Ethics, stepped down in July before his 5-year term was to end. Mr. Shaub, who also served during the administrations of Barack Obama and George W. Bush, had been an outspoken critic of Mr. Trump over potential for conflicts of interest involving his business affairs. Walter Shaub had been critical of the Trump administration credit app. He said, "In working with the current administration, it has become clear to me that we need improvements to the existing ethics program." Michael Dubke, the founder of Crossroads Media, resigned as White House Communications Director in May. "The reasons for my departure are personal, but it has been my great honor to serve President Trump and this administration," said Mr. Dubke, in an email to friends, reported by Politico. Mr. Dubke's resignation came amid criticism leveled at the White House over its communication strategy, in particular contradictions between the president and his press team. Reince Priebus, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, resigned as chief of staff at the end of July amid an internal power struggle involving Director of Communication Anthony Scaramucci. Mr. Priebus was replaced by John Kelly. A confidant of the president said Mr. Trump had lost confidence in Mr. Priebus after major legislative items failed to pass the U.S. Congress. Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, who was an experienced Republican operative, resigned on July 21, ending a turbulent tenure, after Mr. Trump named Anthony Scaramucci as White House Communications Director. Mr. Spicer had reportedly told friends that if Mr. Scaramucci, a Wall Street trader with no Republican Party credentials and no experience in handling media relations, was appointed, then he would resign. Sean Spicer resigns as White House Press Secretary. 0059. The 45-year-old had become perhaps the most recognizable face of Mr. Trump's administration, in part due to the savage mockery at the hands of Melissa McCarthy, who parodied him, to devastating effect, week after week on Saturday Night Live. Michael Short, the senior White House assistant press secretary, was Mr. Scaramucci's second victim. He resigned a few days following Mr. Spicer's departure and shortly after Mr. Scaramucci had told Politico that he planned to get rid of him. Mr. Short's ousting was seen as a warning from Mr. Scaramucci to staffers perceived as leakers and to a communications department seen as loyal to Mr. Priebus. Mr. Short insisted he had not been involved in any leaks. "Allegations I ever leaked anything are demonstrably false," he said. Anthony Scaramucci was fired as White House Communications Director after just 11 days on the job and just hours after former Gen. John Kelly took over as President Donald Trump's new Chief of Staff. Hoping to turn the page on a tumultuous opening chapter to his presidency, Mr. Trump insisted there was no chaos in his White House as he swore in the retired Marine general as his second Chief of Staff. A timeline of Anthony Scaramucci's fall from grace. 0206. Not long after, Scaramucci, who had shocked many with a profane outburst against then Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, was gone. The White House said he was leaving because he felt it was best to give Chief of Staff John Kelly a clean slate and the ability to build his own team. The three-sentence release concluded, "We wish him all the best."